I've already made a video about spirals in anime because spirals show up in weirdly similar contexts. Today I'd like to discuss another symbol. This. I guess it's like a fork. You might remember this symbol from Black Mirror episodes White Bear and Bandersnatch. Let's focus on Bandersnatch because there the fork's meaning is front and center. Bandersnatch is a choose-your-own-adventure movie about a guy named Stefan making a choose-your-own-adventure video game based on a choose-your-own-adventure book. The book's author succumbed to madness, and so does Stefan. Both madnesses relate to this symbol much like Uzumaki's townsfolk are obsessed with spirals. Stefan draws forks because they represent choices in his video game, and mind-bendingly his real life. And, mind-bendingly, our real lives. Stefan feels trapped because every decision can only lead to another decision, producing a deterministic universe with no escape.
Like Pac-Man, he thinks he's got free will, but really, he's trapped in a maze. And even if he does manage to escape by slipping out one side of the maze, what happens? He comes right back in the other side.
Doesn't this look familiar? It should. You've got about 100 billion inside your skull right now. Your neurons are decision trees which work together to make you. Stefan needn't worry about being trapped. There's no Stefan to be trapped, just a bunch of decision trees which call themselves Stefan. The same goes for you, too, but we'll get back to that. For now, let's talk about something stranger. Stranger Things is a Netflix original in its third season about a group of 80s kids in the town of Hawkins who fight, well, first it's this thing, which they call the Demogorgon, and then it's these things, which they call Demodogs, and in the latest season, it's this thing which they call a Mind Flayer. I really enjoy all these seasons, but I'm easy to please. Just show me a body horror abomination and I'll get my popcorn. I want to talk about Mind Flayers because they're made of forks. The 80s kids first saw Mind Flayers from afar in visions of eldritch realities. Then, in Season 3, a Mind Flayer forms in Hawkins by assimilating other beings into a homogeneous mass. At first, it's this blob of rats. Then it kidnaps some humans and makes them kidnap more humans to consume. So there's an org chart. There's the Mind Flayer and the humans in its cult. When the time comes to bulk up, the Mind Flayer assimilates these cultists, too, preserving the org chart in the forks of its appendages. One fork controls our media. Publishers in suits warn journalism interns not to investigate the Mind Flayer's rats. When they dig too deep, the businessmen reveal their true eldritch nature. The monster's corporate form and its meat sack form are identical in forked structure. Our heroes aren't safe, and not just because the Mind Flayer is after them. The 80s kids are also hunted by the amorphous specter of communism. It turns out those evil scientists in Hawkins are classic Cold War-era Ruskies. One might see Soviet expansionism and colonialism in general as a monster, like the Mind Flayer, assimilating outgroups into a burgeoning in-group. In Stranger Things, hostile governments and corporate conspiracies have the same structure as the Monster of the Week, metaphorically or literally. But it's not just our enemies. It's even characters on the side of America and apple pie and stuff. Dire straits cause the police in Hawkins to do things police officers should not be doing. A corrupt police department is like a forking blob of secrets. The Mind Flayer isn't scary just because it's a meat monster that could eat you and your family, and make you join in finishing the job by eating your town. The Mind Flayer represents a timeless terror. Another society swallowing ours, or worse, our own society swallowing itself. We're very protective of our org chart. But are the Mind Flayers really the bad guys here? I mean, all they want to do, as far as we can tell, is make more of themselves, which you'll notice is kind of humanity's goal as well. Just like us, the Mind Flayers are driven to fork. Unlike us, the Mind Flayers embrace forking instead of rebelling against it. We must rebel for them. Stranger Things gets compared to a lot of classic movies, and my favorite among them is in the title. John Carpenter's The Thing is a meat monster like the Mind Flayer. Being stranded in Antarctica, this thing doesn't have the assimilation fodder to go full Hawkins. But if it had more to work with, I imagine The Thing would look like the Stranger Thing. These things have the same end goal, and it's our end goal too. Keep forking. Carpenter ends on a cliffhanger, leaving audiences arguing which, if either or both of these characters are possessed by the thing. But my point is, it doesn't matter, because the audience was already possessed by the thing. We are already forking meat. Like Stefan, the 80s kids seek an existence outside forks, unaware that forks are already inside them. Look at your hands. Assuming you've got the standard model, an arm has 1 bone, then 2 bones, then 8 carpals, and 5 metacarpals, and finally 5 fingers. Your legs are about the same, and basically all animals are like this. We've always been biological org charts like these things. Carpenter's thing is less cohesive than us at times, but that's strictly in its favor. The Thing and the Stranger Things are just better forking meat monsters than we are. So the scariest thing about the Mind Flayer is that we're already there and we don't hold up against the competition. Maybe if Hawkins shrugs off their humanity, we can join in making, like, a meta-Mind Flayer, until we meet, like, a Demigodzilla or something, and join that instead. We can't run away from forks, because we are forks, and we live in forks, and we watch forks obsessing over forks. And I'm definitely thinking about it too much. That's all I do here at Thinkstr. I think I'd like to wrap up with White Bear, one of the most infamous episodes of Black Mirror, which is associated with this fork. If you've watched the episode, you have my condolences, but if you haven't, I'll spare you the details. Long story short, this poor lady lives a wretched existence every day, but forgets about it every night as punishment for a crime she can't remember committing. It's no wonder she only gets 1 fork, as opposed to Stefan's neurons. Stefan despairs how every decision leads inevitably to another decision, while this lady has blinders on. She can't see causes or consequences, only the present. I wouldn't wish this fate on my worst enemies, but she's in a better position than anyone to witness the forking intrinsic to our existence. She gets a close-up look at just 1 fork. 1 fork is all she gets. Even if our circumstances aren't so dire, you and I can't help but fork. We probably look as forked up to Mind Flayers as they look to us. We don't even get to melt and morph together, Terminator 2 style. We're stranded from one another. A Mind Flayer might pity us. But we needn't pity ourselves. If we understand our forking nature, we understand that we don't need to melt to be together. Compassion combines us in the same way slime and mucus combined these guys. If that sounds cool to you, subscribe, and join the wriggling mass of squidlings and elder squids supporting me on Patreon. And check out my website, ted-writes.com, where I'm writing a story about an ultra-marathon runner who bets his legs he can win a race against a horse. Go fork yourself.